working in Spain. It's The Wright Way with David Wright. The comment section is open. Chat live to the DJ right now via our website.
Good afternoon and welcome to The Right Way with me, David Wright, and a very big thank you to John Alex there for keeping us entertained this afternoon. Thank you, John. Okay, so coming up on my show today, more tips and advice on living and working in Spain, and some great tips, some great Spanish songs. Got some great tips as well. And I'm going to be telling you a little bit about some parking rules and regulations, the different parking zones and fines. Have you got a fine in Spain? Do you know how to pay your parking fine and how to avoid some of these parking fines? All coming up on my show after this.
An advice for living and working in Spain. You're listening to The Right Way. The Right Way with David Wright.
The comment section is open. Chat live to the DJ right now via our website.
And here he is, the legendary David Wright.
Okay, so more tips and advice on living and working in Spain. I've got some great Spanish songs coming up as well. And remember, tomorrow, the 15th of September, it's the last day to exchange your driving licence. Now, you've had 6 months now. If you haven't exchanged your driving licence, tomorrow is the last day. Remember that, it's very important. And I was talking to a Spanish local policeman a couple of days ago, was invited over to my house with some friends, and some interesting things he told me about driving here in Spain and regarding the British people fines and things like that, and I'm going to be sharing those inside tips with you a little bit later on. So remember, 15th of September, you've got 6 months. If you've moved to Spain now, you have 6 months from the day you get your residency, but those of you who have been living in Spain for some time now, 15th September, that is tomorrow, that is the cut-off date to exchange your driving licence in Spain. So you're listening to The Right Way with me, David Wright. The comment section has rebooted now, so come and say hi, keep me company for the next 45 minutes or so. So talking about traffic zones and parking fines, things like that today on the show. And I had a very interesting guest come over we had a bit of a party last week. As some of you know, I've got my pool bar up and running now at long last. And yeah, we've been having quite a few parties. So one of my good friends here, actually it's a cousin of my wife, a distant cousin. She's dating a local policeman here. And we were talking about traffic laws, traffic rules, things like that. And, you know, I know some of the traffic rules and regulations, but what is it really like? Do the police really enforce it? How strict are they? And some of the things that he was telling me are quite surprising, really. So I'll be letting you into some of these insights a little bit later on in the show. Okay, so parking in Spain. There are 3 zones around the towns, the blue zone, the green zone and the orange zone. Do you know the difference and what they are? I'll be telling you all about that a little bit later on as well, and how to avoid some hefty fines. And rockabye.
Live. David Wright. David Wright.
David.
The Afternoon Show.
Okay, so talking about traffic zones now, and I was in Almeria a little while ago, and there's quite a few new zones being put out all over the place now. So Spain's pretty good on parking, really. You don't have to pay in most places, but when you go into towns, some of the villages now, they're going into these parking zones. So you've got a blue zone, green zone and orange zone. So if you're not quite sure about this, there's some facts on these. So the blue zones are you see the blue lines, the parking bays are painted in blue. There'll be a sign up in the street and parking meters at the end of the street. You do have to look for these parking meters. They're not quite the same as in the UK. You have to sort of walk around the streets actually looking for them. So the blue zone, you need to be parking for about 2 hours maximum on these. Specific times will be put up on the signs around that area of the blue zone. And it depends on the towns. Some of them have got an hour now, I see, but it's normally here in Almeria, for example, it's 2 hours. You buy a ticket from these machines that are on the street, and you can also now download these apps. There's on the machines, there's a sticker there. You just take a photograph of it or go to the website and download these apps and pay on your apps. It's all digital now. So the green zones, these green zones are similar to the blue, except they're marked in green, obviously, and these are for residents, and the public can park sometimes for up to 2 hours, but in a lot of the areas this is really just for the residents, so you need to be careful on that and watch and read what it says on the sign. And again, same with these the parking restrictions, it depends on the area you are in and the time of the year as well. They do change in the height of the season. Now the orange zones, these are the orange zones now. There's not many of these orange zones around. They're normally for loading And normally for not allowed unless you are a resident. Some residents are allowed to park in these orange loading zones for specific times, but for the public it's not really allowed to park in the orange zones. So you can check these out. I've left the link to all more information on this over on the Almeria Radio website on my page. Just go over to the drop down menu there. There's links to these zones and you can find out more about that on that information page. And I'll be telling you a bit about parking signs, some new parking signs you might not be aware of coming up after the ads.
Hit music.
Okay, so while we're talking about parking, I just want to tell you this brief story. Maybe you're not quite sure about this, but in the UK, people don't tend to park in front of people's driveways on a whole. They don't block their garage way or anything like that. But here in Spain, the Spanish do. They park pretty much anywhere they like. If they can, they will park in front of your drive. Now, you might have seen these signs up in front of people's garages on the wall. It's a plaque. It's a registered plaque called Valdo Permanente. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, I've got some experience with this. Please do not park in front of these signs. You will get towed away and you will get fined €200. So this is how it works. If you've got a property and you're worried about people blocking your drive, you can go to your local town hall. You can ask for one of these signs. I paid €85-90, I believe, some time ago for mine when I had it at my house in Almeria. I think a bit more than that now for sure. Anyway, you get this sign. It's registered to your house. It lasts for 1 year. You put it up on the wall outside of your garage driveway. If anybody parks outside your garage driveway, then you can call a number. They give you a number. And I actually had this when I moved into my house in Almeria ages ago. I had some people parking outside there and I needed to get in and out daily for work, so I bought one of these signs, put it up. The very first day a van pulled up and parked outside there. I went to go into the garage, couldn't get out, so I thought give it a go. I've only had the sign a few days, let's have a go, see what it works. Called the number. Within minutes a police motorbike pulled up. Police got out, looked at the sign, took the number, took my details, and then he called the breakdown truck straight away, no messing. And while we were waiting for the breakdown truck to come, the lady walked down the street and she'd been out doing some shopping, and funny enough, it happened to be one of my neighbours. A bit embarrassing. I didn't know her at the time, but she was a neighbour 3 doors down the road. Parked in front of my drive, and she was all apologetic and everything, and we all laughed about it. But the police said no, he was writing a ticket, that's it, can't do it, and he had to wait for the tow truck to come, and either she would pay the fine there and then, or the tow truck would tow her away, and it's €200. So yeah, but make sure you do not park in front of these Valdo Permanente signs. They are very strict and they do work very well here in Spain. You're listening to The Right Way with me, David Wright, Almeria Radio 107.5 FM. Okay, so you're talking about driving fines, things like that. Well, we had a friend over last weekend, and this cousin, a distant cousin of my wife, she's dating a policeman here, a local police, and we were talking about traffics and traffic stops and things regarding the British people driving here. And one of the things he told me was that they like stopping right-hand drive cars here, British people with the right-hand drive cars. He said because they know that most of the British people haven't got all the correct paperwork. So yeah, that's a thing to remember here. And also he was telling me about people who drive their driving licence. As you know, the 15th September, that's tomorrow, your last day to exchange your UK driving licence for a Spanish one. Now, don't worry if you're just moving here to Spain now. You get 6 months from the day you get your residency. But everybody else, you should have had the chance. You've had 6 months now to exchange. The last date is tomorrow. And I said to the policeman, you know, what happens with this new exchange thing? If you pull somebody in and they're a British person and they're driving, what would happen? You know, would you give them a slap on the wrist? Do they get a fine, or what happens? And he said they would get arrested. They are not allowed to drive that vehicle. The vehicle would be towed away on the spot, and they would be fined heavily. So yeah, take this quite seriously here in Spain now. He said there would be no insurance on the vehicle. It would not be allowed to be driven on the road. So please make sure you do follow these signs. The police are not going to be lenient at all on people that are driving with the wrong driving licence here in Spain. Yeah, Robbie, a nice comment in the comment section there. A policeman was pulled you in, and because his colleague wanted to practice his English. Yeah, that I've had that a few times here as well. I was stopped a little while ago on my motorbike, just an ordinary police traffic stop during the daytime on a roundabout. They pulled us in. I think they were looking for drugs and things like that. Anyway, pulled me over and asked me where I was going, and all in Spanish. And I was telling him, obviously, he understood my strong English accent, and he said, "Are you English?" And I said, "Yes." As I'm handing him my driving licence, he's looking at it, and he said, I speak English. And I said, oh, great. And I started to talk to him in English, and he looked at me totally bewildered and just waved me on. Said, where you go, in Spanish. I don't think his English was very good at all. But there you go, funny story there about police and driving in Spain.
Helping people who are living and working in Spain. It's The Right Way with David Wright.
Okay, so a little bit about the electric scooters. Now, there's been some new changes recently with electric scooters. Now, there seems to be loads of them around where I am at the moment, very popular here with the youngsters. The limit on these is 14 years of age. You can be 14 years of age and you can ride these scooters, and they do up to 25 kilometres an hour. That is the limited speed. Some of them do a lot more than that. Trust me, I had to go on one little while ago. They are really fast. Now, you are allowed to ride these on the cycle lanes, the paths now, but it has to be at 6 kilometres. 6 kilometres. A lot of people going a lot faster than that, trust me here. And you can take passengers with them as well, but there's now mandatory to wear helmets on these electric scooters, and they must have 2 independent brakes on them. So yeah, make sure you follow these rules. And also something else people don't realise, it's the same with cyclists here. When you get to a crossing, even though the cycle lane goes across some of the roads now, across the crossings, you have to dismount on the electric scooter and a pedal bike. You must dismount and walk it across the road. Nobody does, I know, we all do that, go straight across the road, but it is actually law, and there's a fine of €200 if you break any of these rules. So if you're riding these electric scooters, be careful, they are much faster than you think. I was in Seville a little while ago, I did hire one up there, and they have an automatic limiter when you go into the town centres, but they are pretty zippy to run around on. Quite handy, but make sure you follow the rules. Okay, so it's time for Artist of the Week now. Okay, so there's been a lot of changes, some rules and regulations. September, they're starting on the 1st of September, tomorrow with the driving licence thing, and on the 29th, the end of the month, the new dog licences come into force. There is a new dog civil insurance. I've told you about this on the shows before, and you can find out all the information, tips and advice I'll give out here over on the Almeria Radio website. Just go over to the drop-down menu, click on that link there, the Right Way, that's my page, and go straight over to the information page. You can also catch up with all the information and free stuff I give out on davidwrightonline.com. That's my website, davidwrightonline.com. Come and have a look, check it out when you get time. There's loads of tips and advice on living and working in Spain. Okay, so it's time to slow it down a little bit now, and this is one of my old favourites. Almeria Radio 107.5 FM. We're listening to The Right Way with me, David Wright. Okay, so yeah, all the tips and advice, remember, over on my site there, you can check it all out. Everything I give out here goes over there, and there's loads of links to all the information if you want to check it out yourself. Now, I had somebody speak to me this week about an estate agent, and they're buying a property here, and they've gone through the lawyer that the estate agent has recommended. They think it's easier to do that and go through it. It'll be easier for them. But one of the things I've learned here over my 21 years is never go with a lawyer that is recommended by the estate agent. Not everybody is crooked here in Spain. Some of them are very good agents. I've met some very good Spanish estate agents and very good lawyers, but if they're recommending a lawyer, normally they're in with that person, they work together, and they haven't got your best interest at heart. So it's always best to go for a recommended lawyer, somebody separate, somebody independent from the company that you're buying a property here. It can save you a lot of time, money and stress in the long run. So yeah, one of my best tips here, something I've learned the hard way, an expensive lesson that I've learned here, so that maybe you don't have to. Always need to do it right. I'm a great believer in doing things the right way, excuse the pun, and talking about I'm a believer. That's it for another show. I'll be back tomorrow with a very special guest, so listen in then. Thanks very much for listening. Up next, the 5 o'clock hit mix with Rob Mack.